I was going to school with people from India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, China, lots of different sort of nationalities.
People who are on the verge of being homeless or are homeless, and then there's a generic term which might be used for them, that's their choice they have made.
Yeah. Sometimes I don't really think that for people experiencing homelessness and poverty, I don't think that they're included as much in that conversation. A large majority of the people who access the services of short-back and sidewalks are experiencing quite severe mental health challenges. Like, you and I, we would immediately just be able to ring that off. And like, if you don't have a home address, then you're not going to be able to get that. The highest demographic of people experiencing homelessness are women over the age of 55.
Do you think the challenge of homelessness is a collective problem to be solved?
It doesn't help in Australia, and particularly Western Australia currently, with relation to the housing crisis. There's not enough supply to tackle the demand for housing.
The landlord said, yeah, leave. What do you do?
That was it.
So yeah, it was, and then I had to pack up everything and put that in my car. So that big washing machine and clothes and everything in the car, and probably for the next 3 weeks I was in the car.
How did that feel?
I don't know where to go. What kind of role did you play initially, bootstrapping? You were the chair, CEO, ops manager, GM.
Social media.
Social media.
How was everything?
Grooming off the hair.
Yeah, everything. Sweeping hair, making teas.
Off the camera, we were talking a few things when you walked into the door. What does it mean for you to be a father?
Look, the reason why I would want to be a father is to bring someone into the world that has that empathy and can make their own impact.
That's a good reason. I'm a father of a 6-year-old, so so it's good fun being a father. Yeah, that human connection is very powerful when you hold a child's hand and when you are interacting and having that conversation, and when a child trips you over with a smart question and you say, I never thought that. Very smart. What would you want younger people who are looking out in the open sky, or to build their purpose? How do they build that? What gets stubbornness? Unhinged stubbornness. Welcome, Craig. How are you?
Not too bad, Dev. It's great to be here.
Good to see you, and I'm so glad the work you're doing around your charity and more. But before I want to delve into your story, I want to understand a bit more about you, who you are, and then tell me your story, your journey from your hometown, home country to here.
Well, originally from Glasgow, Scotland, which is a place that I came to Australia from about 21 years ago. Grew up in a working class background in a place called Anderson, which is funny because when people ask you where are you from and you say Glasgow, and they say okay, like whereabouts in Glasgow, and then when you say Anderson, they always go like, oh jeez, like so it's right in the middle of the city. So yeah, I came to Australia for a better lifestyle with my family, and that was fundamentally the beginning. My passion, I guess, for social justice and things like that, I think stems from coming from a place where like that sort of element of society was quite apparent as children and whatever else, but also just coming from a place where community is really important, right? And I think I can always start with my story about what led me to start Shortback and Sidewalks, but I think it's a lot deeper than that, and in regards to helping people and social justice it's in our DNA. So,
and how was life growing up? As in, when you talk about community, growing up, and how did you see community as? How do you see helping each other as growing up? What was your version of seeing that?
Well, look, I came from like a very a multicultural area, and quite often there was so many different cultures. And one thing that I always remember about about my kind of area of upbringing, it was like everyone was equal. You know, it was like we were all in it together. I remember going to school and you know, I was going to school with people from India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, China, lots of different sort of nationalities. And the only thing that I could see different was, I always remember this thing in primary school, and we were all like sitting along on this wall, and it was like our first ever time we had lunch together, and we all like sat there with our lunch boxes, and we opened our lunch boxes, and that was the only moment when I realized that everyone was different, was like their lunches. And like I had like a cheese sandwich, right, and the kid next to me is like pulled out this like fish head curry, and you know, like the kid along, you know, had this like, you know, like noodles, and that was the only difference that I could decipher was through food. And it was it was a place where everybody had each other's back. And regardless of where you came from, regardless of your background, regardless of what you looked like, everyone stuck up for each other.
And I think everybody loves somebody else's tiffin box. You know, I had a friend whose mom would make the best sandwiches, and I would always trade my food with his food. And when I would go to his house, and we would like to say if that auntie is that aunt, and we call them, you know, any other friend's mom is auntie. So if she's making a sandwich, I would love to go to his house and I would have a sandwich. So it's just that, you know, what you don't have is more you want. It's probably as a childhood. I like some otherwise different box all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's the community aspect is strong there, and I don't know whether or not it's the same anymore, you know, as society has changed, but my grandmother used to always tell us this story about when she was a kid, and you know, that was maybe, like looking back now, that was maybe 100 years ago. And you know, both of her parents died. I believe her father died in the First World War, and her mother died shortly after. And she was literally like put out on the street in a basket, like just out on the street. And apparently the woman who like lived above my gran and her family had looked out, and there was just these kids just sitting out on the street. Just that was it. And the woman who had nothing to do with my gran or with their family was like, okay, I'm going to have to look after them, and just basically went down and picked them up in the baskets, and you know, until you know, teenager, like looked after, you know. And I think that's the way that I look at kind of community, is like people helping each other regardless of the circumstances. And I guess that's why I've kind of got into the space of doing what I do, is just to kind of promote that community aspect, but also that lack of to try and stop stigma and judgment.
Before we get into that, you know, from your education side of it, as you were, you know, studying and getting educated, you know, the social justice element evolving through your younger years to, you know, sidewalks. How does that happen?
Look, I remember my parents, my dad is retired now, but he was an electrician, and my mum used to work as an air stewardess for Iran Air, actually. And I remember my mum and dad's guidance as a kid, and that was like, we don't care what you do, but just don't do what we do. And that was it. That's all I got, which was fine. And the other thing was like, use your brain or use your head to do the work. Like, you don't want to be crawling through holes when you're 40 and whatever else. So I was always really intrigued in regards to how things worked and how things were built and whatever else. So that kind of naturally led down the engineering and designing path. but and my mum and dad, like, they were so happy about that, because they were like, okay, like, he's fine, he's done something, and that's, you know, he's listened to us, you know. And but I guess the social justice element, immediately within the engineering sector, it wasn't something that I was able to really to kind of follow.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a decision that I would also, as well as doing the engineering job, I made a decision that I would go and learn, because I wanted to be a social worker and I wanted to be a psychologist. So that was always there. So I went to uni to study that. But I kind of, after a little while, I realised, I guess, how fortunate I was to have that kind of engineering skill,
mm-hmm.
and designing skill, and realised that, yeah, look, I was able to pay my bills easily. I was able to have a house, and realised that I would probably have to go and start at the very beginning again.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time in my life, I didn't have I decided that I wasn't going to do that. So then I decided that the next best thing would be to start something myself,
mm-hmm.
and to do it in my spare time, and
mm-hmm.
and that was the crux of it all.
And you know, randomly, as you are thinking of doing something on your spare time,
Yeah.
that thought, how does that thought create, and that thought bubble converting into what you have now? How has that the first foot in the right direction, or first thought of creating what you created?
The first thought?
Yeah.
Well, the first thought was it started.
Or intent.
Yeah, the first intent really was, I guess it always just comes from memories of your childhood, and
mm-hmm.
one major moment for me that I've spoken about quite a lot is the loss of my uncle who
mm-hmm.
passed away as someone who at times experienced homelessness and
mm-hmm.
battled with addiction, and you know, the thought of him like living in a doorway or something like that is just, you know, it's just horrible, like, you know, because it's your family member. So yeah, like the fire of empathy was lit pretty early, and I guess the fact was that I knew my uncle was a lovely person, and I knew that he was someone's father, and he was someone's brother, and someone's partner. He had a story, and I just felt that I think people who are in that situation, they lose their story,
mm-hmm.
and they lose their ability to be listened to, and for me, that was the instigator for what I wanted to do was
mm-hmm.
was to give people the opportunity to be able to tell their story,
mm-hmm.
and give people the opportunity to be empowered, and to be listened to.
Mm-hmm. On your own submission that you're not a barber of any sort or a hairstylist of any sort, but how does the idea of come to fruition, that, you know, your realization that, you know, when you are on the chair and getting haircut, you are open to conversations fairly, and you tell stories and tell a narrative, or so how does that light bulb moment happen?
Well, it was actually like when I was sitting in the chair having a haircut, because, you know, hairdressers and barbers, whether they like it or not, they are the accidental counsellors of society, and it's a very intimate service, you know, like, or which a lot of people don't think about, is that, you know, when you go for a haircut, or when you go for a hair treatment, or when you go for a beard treatment, or when you go for something like that, it's, you know, it's non-romantic, but someone's touching you, you know, someone's touching your face as well, and, you know, the research that has gone into, you know, the healing capabilities of when someone touches you, or touches your face, or your head, or your shoulders, you know, it is profound. And the unique thing about short back and sidewalks is the fact that it's not just like a what's the word? It's not just a moment of where there's there's an exchange and then it's over. It's not just like
transactional.
It's not a transaction. It's just like it's a long period of time. It's 40 minutes or an hour of connection.
And many people I've heard many of my friends, mostly men, who do haircuts. I don't do haircut.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I do more of beard trims. They tell your relationship with their barber is a longer term, and you don't change your barbers very often. You stick with one for longer. So it's not a 40 minutes appointment. It's just many of them, like a counselor, as you said.
And it's the consistency as well. So yeah, the idea. You know, I used to have a friend that he part owned like a barbershop. Because I had no connection to the hair industry. The only connection I had was the person who cut my hair, who his name's Alex, and I've been going to him for like 14 years. You know, so it's a long relationship.
Yeah.
And you tell people like stuff that you might not even tell your family. You know, it's a very interesting relationship with a hairdresser or a barber. So the idea was very simple. I wanted to connect with people, and I wanted to do it through giving haircuts. I couldn't cut hair, obviously, so that element was out. But yeah, so went into a barbershop. That's where I went to still go to get my haircut, and just sat there. And they finished on a Saturday afternoon. I remember it was March, and it was really sunny. This sunny afternoon, and I went into them and sat down, and I told them the story about my uncle, and they said. I got about 30 seconds into the story, and they said, "Oh, look, man, don't worry about it. You don't need to keep going. We're in." And the thing was that some of them had similar situations in their families, and they were like, "We're completely in." So that was a really big pivotal moment, and the whole thing was to get people to
saying yes,
to buy into it, yeah, and to understand that. You know, I don't need to tell hairdressers and barbers the power of the work that they do, because it's really powerful, and they know that. So, that was the very first moment. And then I always say this: it was like that moment when you have like a birthday party or something, and you've like made all these preparations, and like 5 minutes to go, no one's there, and you're like. And that was the feeling of the very first day that we cut people's hair, and it was in the city in Perth, and I was sitting there, and I was just like, I don't know if people are going to turn up for this, like, you know. And we put the word out, and we knew that the word had been put out, and the first ever person who ever got a haircut was a guy sitting on the pavement, and he had two sort of shopping bags. And I had to I guess muster up the courage of asking him, was he there for the haircuts? Because I don't if he wasn't, then you know I could have offended him or something like that, or he could have just been sitting there having a break from shopping or something. But I mustered up the courage, and I said, "Oh, look, are you here for the free haircuts?" And he said, "Yeah." And he was the first ever person that ever got a haircut, and it's funny because I'm not like a spiritual person, or I don't think that I am. But when I look back, I'm kind of like, was that like my uncle making a sign to say, this is what you're doing is right? I don't know, but it was that chap was going for a job interview. The next day he'd travelled for like 30 k's on a bus to come and get a haircut. He was sleeping in a tent out the back of Wanneroo. He'd had a previous successful business in Darwin, and unfortunately he was in a situation there where he was getting a free haircut in a car park, you know. And I think that was a big eye opener for a lot of us, because we were like, if people are going to travel that far, and if they're going to take it, if it's going to be that serious, then we're onto something. And from then on, it just kind of snowballed. And here we are today, I guess. And
in terms of, I want you to tell a bit more about the demographic of people who walk through the door, because probably people who have not been exposed to people who are on the verge of being homeless or are homeless. And then there's a genetic term which might be used for them, that's their choice they have made.
Yeah.
But sometimes things happen to people, So what kind of people you have who have walked through the door and you would never assume that, they are on that sticky corner of their life?
Yeah, one of the really interesting sort of statistics or facts that is relevant around homelessness is if someone does not have a mental health challenge when they begin being homeless, it doesn't take very long before they do develop a mental health challenge. And one thing that has been a challenge over the years of trying to break that stigma for people is that as a society and as a world where we've never been more conscious of mental health and mental health challenges and whatever. Sometimes I don't really think that for people experiencing homelessness and poverty, I don't think that they're included as much in that conversation. And I think that they really should be in regards to the challenges that they are facing and that they're experiencing. So a large majority of the people who access the services of Shortback and Sidewalks are experiencing quite severe mental health challenges. And coupled, and that's just one element. And I think people's empathy needs to be a lot more in understanding that every single day is a new battle for these people. One of the biggest learnings that I've had is that people think, oh, just get a job, or just sort yourself out, get a haircut and do whatever. And it's like it's a lot more complex than that. And because the first thing that if you went to get a job, or the first thing that you would be asked if you went to open up a bank account, if anything that you do that is what is your home address? And if you and I, we would immediately just be able to ring that off. And like if you don't have a home address, then you're not going to be able to get that loan, or you're not going to be able to put that application in, or, then it kind of just starts.
Or a bank account.
Exactly, yeah. So it's like there's a lot of misunderstanding and a lack of empathy in regards to people's circumstances. I think I've learned a hell of a lot over the years in regards to that. We would put out a call for people to come for haircuts, and sometimes people wouldn't show up, and I would sit there and I'd be like, I would immediately think, I'd be upset because people didn't come. But I remember one day I was speaking to someone and they said, every single day is a different battle. So when I wake up that day, a haircut is not number one priority in my day. It's trying to battle to get food, or it's trying to battle to go somewhere to figure out about where I'm going to stay that night, or so a haircut is not number one, or getting my clothes washed is not number one priority. So that the priorities change, and it's a survival mechanism. So
what do you think are because being homeless or pushing demographically up a sector of the people or within the population into homelessness, what has to happen before? What's the root cause, or what's are triggers of creating more people who are on the verge of homelessness or are homeless? what has happened before, because that's the effect, not the cause.
Yeah.
This is people are watching more people on the streets, but what is happening, and or what are the trends are you seeing?
Well, some of the highest demographic of people experiencing homelessness are women over the age of 55. And I guess there's many different reasons for that. As a society, unfortunately, in the way that we've operated, the woman's role has traditionally been to be the carer, which therefore then impinges negatively upon their own ability to progress in their careers. So their superannuation potentially is not as high as the person who's historically been meant to be the provider. And then there comes a time if their relationship breaks down and they're not the one who's the primary owner of the household, they're in dire straits. So that's an alarming fact. It's an alarming statistic. I mean, in Australia, obviously, there's the Aboriginal sort of population of Australia who, I mean, that's a whole different conversation in regards to what's been experienced there and the figures in which Aboriginal people make up in regards to homelessness. When I came to Australia and realised that there was 123,000 people each night experiencing homelessness in Australia, and then over 3.5 million people who live below the poverty line, I was just astonished. I didn't, as a migrant to this country, I didn't. All you get to see is the palm trees and the beach and the ocean and the paradise, and so for me that was a real wake up call and a real eye opener. But the people that are accessing these services every day, it's not like that stereotype of what people think and where their brains go when they think of someone experiencing homelessness. I think historically there's that vision or that image that comes into people's head, and the reason why is because stigma is a really powerful thing. Stereotypes are very powerful, but it's kids that are between the ages of 9 and 15 that are coming in to get services. Old age pensioners that that don't have a home and are experiencing homelessness. As mentioned, the women over 55. There's women with lived experience of domestic violence. The sooner I think society understands that this is not something that applies to the old man with the beard pushing the trolley on the side of the street, then I think the more that we will actually progress when it comes to people experiencing homelessness.
Do you think the challenge of homelessness is a collective problem to be solved, not just by the federal government, but federal, state, and local councils? Because one of the short-term solutions are typically used just to out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
That kind of a strategy, which is so demeaning in so many ways. But how is this challenge could be collectively solved across the layers of government, or is it being talked about?
It doesn't help in Australia, and particularly Western Australia currently, with relation to the housing crisis. Like people, there's not enough supply to tackle the demand for housing. But that's not even related to people experiencing homelessness. That's like that's a kind of that's an issue that we all suffer from and have to deal with. So in situations where the housing stock does not match the demand, I mean, you're obviously going to get issues, but then it just becomes compounded in relation to the social housing aspect. Because if they're not able to build enough houses for people, then the social housing stock is not going to be anywhere either. So I think, unfortunately, the issue is politicized, but it does require a community attitude towards dealing with it, and something that we all have to work together.
And how might we build a real empathy? People who are facing homelessness or sleeping very, very challenging situations, beyond, to sometimes, I don't know, I feel, doing one night sleeping out on the streets and doing those kind of, I don't know how much real relevant for everybody, everyday Australians, to empathize with that kind of a challenge, because everybody comes with their own solutions.
Yeah, it's a good one. I always think, are you talking about like the CEO of Sleep House and stuff like that? Yeah, like, it's an interesting one, because my brain immediately would historically have probably went to the more cynical place. But when I look at it, at least these people are doing something. Like at least they're doing something, because I think that the majority of people aren't. So even the people who get involved, and to be fair, it does raise a lot of money, and it raises a lot of awareness, but I think it all starts with empathy and understanding, and it's an uncomfortable conversation. It's always going to be an uncomfortable conversation, but the fact of the matter is that a lot of people don't get treated as human beings, and I think that's where, for me, it starts. Is that just because someone is experiencing homelessness, that does not define them, and we have to get to the understanding where that's the case, and even just sitting down and having a chat with someone, that might sound like nothing, but it's not. It's making people feel seen.
As a young 24-year-old boy, I had a job, and I was living back home in India, and the landlord said, "Yeah, leave." What do you do?
That was it.
So yeah, it was, and then I had to pack up everything and put that in my car. So a big washing machine and clothes and everything in the car, and probably for the next 3 weeks I was in the car.
Yeah, right. How did that feel?
I don't know where to go, and I was trying to spend as much time in the office across the day, and so it was challenging. It was challenging living in the car, and I finally, I found a friend who was living in a hostel, and I was just sneaking in for this night's sleep, and then have a quick wake up earliest in the morning and have a shower and move out, and then suit up and go to office. So that was that was my story on. I had a job, suited up and put on tie and go to work.
Yeah. But
no house.
And that's the thing, right? Like, that's the other complex factor that a lot of people don't really understand. And thanks for sharing that with us. As in, because that's a really important factor, and I guess, like, having experienced that yourself, like, you can understand what I'm talking about. And a lot of people, they don't understand the value of having like a network, and we can talk about networking in regards to business and all that stuff, but like, you know, maybe that's
close set of friends.
Yeah.
People who can trust.
Someone who's going to be there. When you call them, when you're kicked out of a house and they let you stay at their house, like, that's a friend. Like that's a network, and that's a valuable thing to have. And if you're in a situation where you don't have that, like, it just makes it so much more complicated and complex. And I think that's a huge factor in regards to a lot of these people's situations, is that they've completely lost their network, and, you know, for lots of different reasons. And when that is lost, then that just adds another level of extreme complexity and difficulty to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have a network, and if you have a group of people, the minute that something bad happens to you, you can immediately call them up.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's not there, then it just makes it so much worse.
Where do you see the accountability or the responsibility of solving this challenge of homelessness sits with? Local, state, or federal?
All of
or
it.
Nowhere?
No, all of it. And I think at the very base level, people need somewhere to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And in my experience, you can't progress anywhere until you have shelter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the most basic thing. You know, people need a roof over their heads, and they need somewhere safe, and they need somewhere that's dry, and they need somewhere that's warm. And don't get me wrong, that's not the answer. That's not the main answer. But it's all of the other components and mechanisms that kind of go around that. But firstly, people need to be able to stay somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, you know, like the person sleeping in the car, that's not sustainable.
Mm.
You know, like sleeping in a park or a doorway or something, like that's not sustainable. Not to mention, you know, the fact that that's extremely dangerous. You know, you're going to be more likely to develop a disease or a cold or a flu or something that's going to impact your health.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the life expectancy of people that experience homelessness is much less than your average person.
Mm-hmm. And before, as you were talking about earlier, when you are on that verge or on that critical juncture, you are, you know, recently homeless, and because of whatever circumstances, you might not have mental health issues, you might not have all those, health challenges.
Mm-hmm.
You can build them up, and they escalate fairly faster.
Yeah.
Because things are so much unknown every time, every day. And how does that impact, you know, not just the life expectancy, but, you know, the quality of life? The quality of life, and then the quality of relationships you're building or not building, or losing your network. So there might be a network until that, you know, corner store, and then when you are more worse, you know, you are prone to more alcohol abuse or drug abuse. You're more prone to, you know, violence on the street. You're more prone to so many other things. So, and then you know, the loss of network might happen through all of that, you know, circling down.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And just the way that you put it, and the way that we're talking about this, it really just highlights how complex it all is. And I guess that was one of my intentions in the very beginning, was to, I guess, make more people understand the complexity of it. Because I know for a fact that there is that stigma, and there is that stereotype, and it's not true. You know, like, we meet people all the time who've had successful businesses, and successful careers, and you know, like a person that I met semi-recently was someone who was like a data engineer at UWA.
Mm-hmm.
Probably one of the smartest people that would be around if that's what you're doing, and you know, a young person who had a family and their family network broke down with
Mm-hmm.
a partner, and ended up living on the street. And it's like for me that shatters all of the stereotypes, and that shatters all of the stigma.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guarantee you, if you say to someone, if you think in your head about someone who's experiencing homelessness,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to be a data engineer from UWA.
Yeah. From there on, I need to. This thing is bothering me. I need to understand the genesis story of the name. What's behind the name? You know, how did you got the name?
I've said this for a long time. I'm not going to claim responsibility for the name. It's someone who's much smarter than me. A friend of mine, Ewan, who now lives in Adelaide, who's a whiz-bang sort of marketing and branding sort of person, or he was. He's got many talents. So yeah, the name. I remember when I very first heard it, I was like, wow, that's pretty catchy. And I think people do. It does mean that people remember it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that's part and parcel again of having that network of people. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Because Short Back and Sidewalks has been going for 10 years, but for a large part of that 10 years, it relied on the community.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, I had this idea, but I didn't know anything about marketing, I didn't know anything about branding, I didn't know anything about governance, I didn't know anything about the legal, you know, the legal processes of setting up a not-for-profit.
Fundraising.
Oh, you name it. The whole thing.
Sorry, hair cutting.
Yeah.
I want to start a charity to cut people's hairs, but
Yeah, I just got no idea.
no idea.
And that's the power of the network, you know, because if you're doing a good thing, people will help you because it makes them feel good as well, you know. So my mate who I phoned up and I said, look, I've got no idea what I'm doing. I think I want to start a not for profit, but I wouldn't even know where to start. And then he was like, okay, well. And I remember he took me to like a cafe and we sat there with all it was like the salt, the pepper, and I was saying like, I remember just saying to him, he looked at me and he goes, oh, do you know why we're at this cafe? And I was like, nah, no I don't. And he's like, because they've got salt, pepper and sauce and mustard, and because this is the only way that I could explain this to you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because he knew that I had no idea. So I was like, okay, fair enough. So he said, right, so how's this not-for-profit going to work? And who is the person that came up with the idea? And I said, oh, me. And he said, and he just like pushed all the pepper and the salt and whatever, and he just said, well, he was like, that's going to make it a bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that was the beauty of starting Short Back and Sidewalks, was that it came from one person, or it came from one idea,
Mm-hmm.
which has now gone on to help
Mm-hmm.
over 10,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but the point is that without the help of that lawyer who's a mate, without the help of Ewan who put together the brand and the name, and without the help of everybody who's been involved, it's been a really fascinating journey, and I think it's kind of revolutionised the way that people can actually give back as well. Because lots of people want to help, but they just don't really know how to do it. So even though Short Back and Sidewalks you can see it in what it does, but there's one thing that's fascinated me over the years is just the amount of people that are in the background that you don't see, and all the effort that's gone in over the years is just it's amazing, and that goes for my partner, who's, you know, unfortunately she's been brought into it, but she's been a volunteer for 7 years, and, you know, does all the comms and friends of mine who are, you know, general managers at Rio, and, you know, environmental scientists, and, you know, everyone's got their role to play in regards to, you know, how, like, back in the day when we started with a board, you know, learning how that works, and it's just been an amazing experience all in to really take something from which was really grassroots, to where it is now.
What kind of role did you play initially, bootstrapping? You were the chair, CEO, ops manager, GM.
Social media.
Social media.
That was everything. Yeah, it was chaos, like
brooming off the hair.
Yeah, everything. Sweeping hair, making teas. Yeah, like everything. Like, you know, it's fascinating to see where it's come from. Where it's fascinating to see where it's come, because
and what it takes.
Yeah. It takes. I was doing a talk the other day, and someone asked me about what does it really take, you know? And I said,
it is what? And it is.
It takes. I think it takes you to be ultra stubborn. And also it takes you to really become comfortable in being told no, or, you know, being rejected, thinking that something is going to happen and then it doesn't, and, you know, over the years you've got all the best intentions, but, you know, the amount of times that I've been told no, like, dwarfs the times that people have said yes. And that's sometimes can be quite, I guess, what's the word, like, demoralizing. And, you know, you've just got to become comfortable with it.
I would call that character building.
Character building. And the amount of times that I've listened to someone say, oh, you know, it just doesn't really fit in with our pillars, or, you know,
our values.
Yeah, and you're like, come on, like, we're just helping people who are doing it tough, you know. But yeah, but it's funny because the skill sets that I've learned over the last 10 years is something that at the very beginning I didn't really have any understanding or appreciation or awareness of what I was about to learn. And it has been life-changing, and even though the action of being out on the street and helping people experiencing homelessness is, like, because that's not my full-time job. I do that as a volunteer. I've always done it as a volunteer for 10 years, because I work in a full-time capacity in an engineering consultancy called AECOM. Even though that was like polar opposites of the spectrum in regards to what you could be doing, by the end of the 10 years, and it's come together, because the skills that I've learned in regards to strategy and operations and governance, and, you know, how to build a business and what you need to look for in regards to how you operate your board or your business, it's all these kind of skill sets that I would never have actually dreamed of being able to acquire.
In the early days, post, you know, you have done everything, you know, sweeping the hairs and everything, including strategy and being a chair and a CEO and the ops manager. There would be a plateau where you'd achieve, you know, or you sort of brick wall when you want to grow from there, you can't. and probably the only way out is either you ask for more money in grant funding, or you do a fundraiser to raise money. So what was that conversation like, and then what was that bootstrapping for the next round of growth?
One thing that I always knew in my head, even from the very beginning, I knew that this was not something that I wanted or that I had the skills to do, like as a full-time role. So in the very beginning, like I realized and these are like, looking back, I kind of realized that these are really key, fundamental reasons why it's succeeded. I didn't want to be the chair, because I didn't know how to be a chair, and I was honest with myself, because I wasn't going to kid anyone else on. I wasn't going to kid myself on. So we had a chair of our board in the very beginning, who knew how to be a chair of a board. So that was the first thing. The plan was always working towards eventually paying a staff member. So everybody was on board with that. So it was like, and I didn't want to have the glory or the whatever. So we were all working towards that goal, and that was going to be that we were going to, at some point, we were going to hire a chief executive officer. But we had enough smart people around the table to be able to guide us in that right way, and without the input of all of those really intelligent people, it wouldn't have gotten to where it is. So what we did, and which I'm not sure what it's like compared to other organizations, but we didn't want to get too ahead of ourselves. We wanted to focus on the really core components, and that is having your ducks in a row. Having your strategy tight, being well governed, having good governance, focusing on having the ability to, when someone actually was going to come along and say here's some funding, for us to really know what we wanted to do with it. And that took us 7 years. So when the time came, it's funny because I didn't, for the first 6 years, I didn't stand out the front of the organization. For me personally, the reason why I did that was because I didn't want it to be about me. I still to this day, I want it to be about the people who we help, or the people who come and get a haircut, the people who come and have a chat. But I had a pretty kind of game-changing conversation with someone maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And she was a doctor. She's a doctor of business at Curtin University, and I remember she was very blunt with me, and she said, something along the lines of, I can see what you're doing, and I can see the work that your team are doing, and I can see the fact that you don't want to step out the front of this, because that's not who you are. But she said, my advice to you is that this is not going to succeed if you don't step out the front of it. And she said, unfortunately, you're the one who has to do it. So I remember not long after that, I was in work, and I got a call on my phone, and I had to step into a boardroom, and the phone goes, and I didn't recognize the number, and I picked up the phone and I answered, and this woman's voice was on the phone, and she said, hello, my name is Anne-Marie, and I'm from the Australian of the Year Awards, and wanted to call you to say that you've been nominated for an Australian of the Year award. And I immediately just went, okay, Anne-Marie, if that's your real name, thanks very much. And I put the phone down. And I walked back to my desk. And about 20 minutes later, my phone goes again, and it's the same number, and I was like, hello? And she's like, you don't believe that this is real, do you? And I was like, no, I'm sorry, Anne-Marie. I was like, look, I've played a lot of jokes in my life, but I'm pretty sure that this is a joke. And as it turned out, that was my first conversation in regards to the Australian of the Year award that I went on to then win. But I genuinely thought that someone was playing a joke on me. But look, the opportunities that we got and that I got out of winning that award was huge, and we received a pre-election agreement from Scott Morrison at the time. So it was coming up to a federal election. So Scott Morrison, I had a chat with him. We got invited to his house, and we went for morning tea. And again, like I think that I spoke to him for about 5 minutes. We were only meant to speak to him for about 30 seconds. I ended up, first thing I spoke to him was about dogs, because there was a little dog in the garden, and we were playing with his dog. And yeah, we connected on that personal level, and I think that's very important, because that's fundamentally what Short Back and Sidewalks does. It's like connecting. It's like you and I right now, we're having a chat and having a laugh, and not long after I got back from Canberra, we received I think it was close to $500,000 in a pre-election agreement from the Liberal Party, and then we're an organisation that doesn't have any political affiliation, because the issue that we deal with is homelessness and poverty. So the Albanese government then matched the pledge. The pre-election agreement. So then we realised at that time, we were like, okay, well, unless Clive Palmer gets majority government, we're going to be pretty good. We're going to be sorted. So yeah, we received that funding, and that was like the new dawn of Short Back and Sidewalks, because we had prepared and planned for that day for 7 years, and without the dedication and the stubbornness, and because there's so many times over the years that you stared in the mirror and you just went,
not a good haircut. No, sorry. Stare in the mirror and said.
Stare in the mirror, and like it quite often used to happen when you'd have a volunteer, and they would just be so amazing. Yeah. And they would call, and they would say, look, I'm so sorry. Like my life has got in the way. I'm having kids. And that's brilliant, and that was like, it had to be celebrated. But the amount of times over the years where I would have that call, and they would say, and I'm not blaming anyone, because that's just life. But yeah, you would come off that call when someone who's so important to the organisation has
walked away.
Yeah, and you go, geez, like we're back at the beginning, and it's like, yeah, and having that, having that network of people, and receiving that funding, that gave us the opportunity to hire a full-time staff member. That when she was hired, so her name's Natalie Jenkins. She's an absolute legend, and she's the former CEO of the Black Swan Theatre here in Western Australia. Has been in the not-for-profit sector for 20 odd years, potentially a little bit more. Was just the perfect person to take that role on, And what we'd done over the previous 7 years was we'd done our best to kind of say, right, okay, this is what we've got, and then you know, having someone with that skill set to come in and be able to kind of look at all the strategy and all the governance and all the operations, and you know, I guess put their own skill sets to that, which was phenomenal. And then, you know, we eventually then were able to welcome new members of the board, and our previous board were amazing. And then I guess with the federal funding and then the Lottery West funding, and when things started moving in a different direction, it required a different skill set of board members. So we welcomed Tim Marney, who's the former Under Treasurer, the former Commissioner for Mental Health, Kate O'Hara, the CEO of Food Bank, the highly experienced people, you know, the Alison Zamon, the current mayor of this city of Vincent, you know, lawyer, former leader of Greens here in WA again, and it was just you know, combining with the skill sets of the board members who were there, introducing this new skill set was just another game changer. And I guess it's a fascinating sort of look back when you go, this just started in a car park, and I think that's one thing I don't really say very often, is just the fact of how much I appreciate the fact that these people, not only just the people that I've mentioned, but all of the volunteers, you know, the people who have given so much of their time to making sure that this can work, is I can't thank them enough. You know, I guess I'll always be in their debt.
Wow, that's a powerful story from there. How has your experience post the last magic happening in the last 3 years, things rolling on, growing from Western Australia to other states?
Yeah. So
what has that expansion journey looked like?
So as part of the federal funding grant from the Department of Social Services, Shortback and Sidewalks was able to expand to 11 major Western Australian regions. We also operate in Adelaide, Sydney, Melbourne. It's given us also the opportunity to hire our second paid staff member, which Elaine, our operations manager. I also look. I'm not here to give advice on not-for-profits or whatever. Like one of the major factors of all of this kind of progression was me being able to kind of just step away. So. It's a difficult. It has been quite difficult because, like you said, you know, like when you're just when you have learned historically to be across everything, it then does become difficult to then just go, you know, I'll see you later, because quite a lot of the relationships that have been built have been built around myself, and. You know, the volunteers, like they would so used to just be texting me or calling me, or so yeah. But making a conscious effort to get out of the way for me has been has been something that we've really worked on in regards to letting the team do the work that they're now getting paid for, and so. That element of things, I have I still am on the board, and I guess my role has kind of changed to really kind of let
not the operations but the governance.
Yeah, and now, you know, the one of my major goals, I guess, in life now, if I look at it, because it's been for the last 10 years. We did our very first service on William Street in Perth, and that I remember that it was a Saturday afternoon, and I remember walking away from that service to where I was living in Highgate at the time, and I was just like, my brain was like going 100 miles an hour, because it was amazing, you know, like we gave about, you know, 15 haircuts on the first ever service, and you know, it just was fantastic. But one of my main goals was like, okay, I want to get the hair industry involved, you know, and I really truly believe that the Australian hair industry is going to be like a driver or a big vehicle for this, and that was like one of my biggest challenges, was like, how do we get the hair industry involved? You know, like the only person I knew in the hair industry was like the person who cut my hair, so like it was not a very it was not a very expansive network. But look, that's the next part for me in regards to securing the support of the hair industry. So you know, in a couple of weeks' time, we are welcoming one of the biggest sort of brands and one of the biggest figures in, I guess, in the hair industry to come down, who are going to be a supporter of short back and sidewalks, which even in itself, like that you know, you can say that in one sentence, and like that itself has taken 10 years, like specifically given that I'm not even in the hair industry, so it's like maybe it's even a bit harder, because you know, it's like it's a whole different industry that you don't understand much about. But over the years, the input that we've had, and the connections that we've built, and the advice that we've had from people in the hair industry has been phenomenal. And I think that's going to be the next larger component for short back and sidewalks, is you know, the expansion to not only more places in Australia, but letting the hair industry sort of put like a megaphone,
champion this cause. Off the camera, you were talking a few things when you walked into the door. What does it mean for you to be a father?
Look,
and why would you want to be a father?
I think that the world does better when there's good people in it. And the world needs more good people. The world needs more people with empathy, and the world needs more people who can care for other people. And the reason why I would want to be a father is to bring someone into the world that has that empathy and can make their own impact. And even though that's on such a small level, you know, like I do know that the smallest things can kind of turn into the biggest things. So that would be a reason.
That's a good reason. I'm a father of a 6-year-old, so so it's good fun being a father.
How did that sound?
I never had that big aspirations to start with. I was not aspirational, but yes, I had a very. I think the core human instinct is to have connection as you build connections, you know, behind the chair when you're cutting hair, and as you build connections through your life. And I think for me and probably many other fathers, is having that child, having that personal connection with someone. It's beyond genetics, beyond biology. It's way more powerful when you see the hints of your family recreated. You can see your grandfather, you know, or you know, you can see my dad. So all of those things, it's very powerful, and it's memories. It's memories from your past being lived in the future. So, and then that was not the idea before. I'm telling you, this is, you know, I'm being smart post, but yes, that human connection is very powerful when you hold a child's hand, and when you know, are interacting and having that conversation, and when a child, trips you over with a smart question and you say, I never thought that. Very smart. So those, I think that's what was my post understanding.
Yeah.
Probably before it was very primitive, a very, very human instinct to have, to have more of you. To have more of you.
And it's the simple things that are often the best, right?
Yeah.
If you saw your child do something like nice for another person, or that means that it comes from you, right?
Yeah. And other thing, I think the whole idea of family around a child. I think if it's a functioning family, whether you are together or not together as parents, but you are having a functioning co-parenting relationship, it gives that young person a chance to probably not end up on the other side of being, as you said, you had people coming to the door who are young people.
That's a huge factor. I remember I watched this video, and it was like, I can't remember where it was, and they had all these, they had 100 people standing in a line, and the person who got to the end first, it was a running race, won $100, whatever it was. But what they said is, they were like, oh, by the way, before we start the race, we're just going to ask people a few questions, and if you answer yes to the questions, you're going to take 5 steps forward, and then after that, then we'll race. The first question was, do you come from a family that still has the
broken family, or both parents?
Do you come from, if you come from a family that still has both parents,
Step forward.
Second question was, if you come from a family where both of your parents are employed, take another step forward. If you come from a family where you have been educated in university, step forward. And then you actually started to see a pattern developing in regards to the people that unfortunately were standing on the start line. And the amazing thing is about that is that's completely out of your control. You literally couldn't do it. You can't have any bearing on that, because that's all things that have happened previously, and that's the really heartbreaking thing, I think, for me in regards to that is that a lot of these people, they're in situations that they're in, but they've had little control over it. And quite often the people who are experiencing homelessness and people who are experiencing poverty, and they do come from broken families. They do come from a situation in their lives where both of their parents are not employed. They've had historic unemployment in their families. And I guess unfortunately that means that it can be a thing that just continues.
On conclusion, I would like you to share some closing thoughts on what would you want younger people who are looking out in the open sky, or to build their purpose, to build their life around. What are the things typically? How would they evaluate their purpose, and how do they keep on moving? And how do they build that? Stubbornness, unhinged stubbornness. How do you build unhinged stubbornness?
Look, some of the best advice that I reckon that I had to find out for myself, but you have people, and regardless of whether or not it's a child or anyone, like, you have to realize that you're the only version of yourself, right? You're extremely unique. There's nobody else in the world that's like you, and there's nobody else in the world that has the skills that you do. And I think that that's a really powerful thing for people to actually be empowered by. Because unfortunately, I think a lot of people are kind of trying to be like someone else, and that's just unrealistic. Like, you have to be comfortable and empowered in the fact that you are your own person, and you have a unique skill set that nobody else has. And to be able to understand that things are not going to go your way all the time, but it's, I guess, about how we react to that and the resilience that you have to show to get there. And as you said, it's a different level of stubbornness, but the good thing is the fact that despite the amount of times that the doors may be closed in your face, and the amount of times that you may be told no, or you don't, for whatever reason, things don't work out in your favor, it's all about embracing the good stuff and celebrating when things go right. And I guess everybody in life always goes through ups and downs and whatever, but I think it's really, really about experiencing and celebrating the positive stuff and celebrating the wins, which hopefully in a way can dwarf the negative things.
Lovely.
I think that's pretty much what I think would be the best advice. Embracing the fact that there's no one else like you.
Lovely. Thank you, Craig.
No worries. It's an honour. Thanks very much.